Raise your hands if you've heard that one before, or if you've told yourself something along those lines in the past. But I'm in a position to tell you now from personal experience over the last few months, it's basically true, to some extent. If this is one of the first videos you've watched of mine, this isn't the kind of content I usually make. My videos are mostly about the adventures I try to go on, and my training rides, which are usually all day long, as hard as I can for as long as I can. And alongside those endurance adventures at the weekends, I've been training extremely hard by my standards through the week. I haven't been going on about it too much this year, but I am training for some pretty big races. One of them's out of the way now, recently a 24-hour time trial, but in June I've got an event in Bosnia, which is 1,200 kilometers, quite a short cut-off time, and then in July I've got a 4,000 kilometer race across Europe called Via. So I'm trying to get as fit as I possibly can, I'm training a lot, and today I'm absolutely bloody knackered. So while this isn't going to be a moan fest, I'm not going to whinge about what I've been up to, how hard my life is, but I thought it'd be a good time to talk about the challenges, trying to train at this level as an amateur and a person with all of the stresses that most people have in their lives, mostly. We're talking a full-time job, 40 hours a week, training load, 20 hours a week, editing YouTube videos, 4 to 8 hours a week maybe, then trying to have a life outside of that and recover. Ever since I started working with my coach, Giovanni, this has been a real adventure. It's been a real challenge. And what I would say, spoiler alert, it's working, but there are some serious challenges along the way. I thought I'd go into a bit of detail on how it feels to train at this level. When numerous people are telling me it's too much, it's not gonna work, but I can tell you it is. But today, I've just got about 3 hours, roughly. I'm out on a nice gravel path around my home city of Portsmouth, in the sun, taking it easy. So I thought I'd talk about this now. I'm about to go up and over Portsdown Hill, so I'll get into some of the numbers and get into the real nitty-gritty of how this has worked out. Today's riding is essentially a recovery ride. I do have 12 hours to cover over Saturday and Sunday, but I also have a lot of freedom in how I lay those hours out. Giovanni isn't really too bothered about how Saturday and Sunday are laid out, but today I woke up and I didn't even want to get out of bed. I was too tired. I'm at the end of 2 weeks of quite tough training, and next week's a rest week, so it's about right. I'd expect to be pretty knackered by now. So I thought I'd just do 3 hours today, and then I'll be a bit fresher tomorrow for 9 hours. And on top of that, I can ride at whatever pace I like. So today I'm taking it very easy and just enjoying the coastline. I'm back home recording this for a second time. I did record this up on the hillside. It ended up being far too windy, so you couldn't really hear what I was saying. So I think I'm going to break this down into a few areas. I'm quite far into this process now, 135 days. So I'm going to go over my experience, the benefits of a plan like this, some drawbacks, ways I've had to try to manage time to make it fit in, and then kind of answering the question, should an amateur or somebody in a similar position to me take on a plan like this? As I touched on to in the intro, I have a full-time job. I work 40 hours a week, a desk job. That requires me to be there sometimes. It is flexible, but I do have to commute, have to be mentally present. I have to learn, deal with a lot of policies and procedures and all of the normal fun things that people with desk jobs have to deal with. I have to commute to work some days, so let's say maybe 10 hours is traveling to work, doing my job, getting home again. Then on top of that, my training on the bike is usually around 20 hours. Not every week. More recently, it dropped down slightly in the last couple of months. Over the winter, it's pretty consistently 20 hours per week. More recently, dropped down ever so slightly until the on the loop, and then again, it started to pick up again. This week, I think, is 19 hours. Roughly 10-12 hours of training is over the weekends. This week, for example, it's pretty much 2 hours after work every day. On top of that, I want to have a life, I have a partner, I have to cook, clean, all of those fun things that we have to do as adults. So all in all, it kind of feels similar to someone who's working 60-70 hours a week. The plan itself and the volume was a real adjustment. I've always been really consistent in my training. Not quite as consistent as I am now with the high volume, but I always did quite a lot of hours on the weekends. I'm now doing it much more consistently than I used to. So I've always had faith, if I follow this plan consistently, I'll reap the rewards. And spoiler alert, I am. The plan involves a lot more intensity and a lot more variation in intervals than I was used to before. So I had to make some adjustments in the beginning to my diet and nutrition to try to fuel myself and survive the plan for the first couple of months. I've already made several videos about the diet, nutrition side of things. I'm not going to go on about that now, but just wanted to touch on to the fact that adjusting to the higher volume in this plan was a bit of a struggle to begin with. It is doable, but it was a real shock to the system. I think with any plan like this, the aspiration perspiration thing comes into effect. If you really want to make something like this happen, then you'll find the hours to do it and try to make it work. Doesn't mean to say it's going to be easy, but if you get quite creative, you can cope better than you think you might. I'll use this week as an example. I didn't realise on Monday I needed to be around outside of my pain cave at about 6:30. I didn't realise that until 5 o'clock and had a 2-hour session to take on that would take me up until 7 PM. So obviously panicked a bit. I don't want to pee off my partner. And that session was only active recovery, so it's zone 1 for 2 hours. So what I had to do was do an hour and a half on the bike, jump off, go and do some things around the flat, get back on the bike an hour later, do my remaining half an hour, then get off the bike, have my bath and eat my dinner and those nice things. Then in a couple of weeks' time, I've got a weekend break with my partner to Nice in France. Really looking forward to that for a bit of a change of scenery. But that weekend, I've got 10 hours of training planned in. Unfortunately, I've got to draw the line somewhere. That weekend, there's no way I can do 10 hours of training while I'm away with my partner. What I did do was look up to see if there are any public access bikes, and Lime bikes are available in Nice. So I'm going to get on the bike, do a bit of sightseeing for an hour each day on the bike. That can be my 1 hour active recovery ride whilst I'm away. I feel like it definitely can be quite chaotic trying to fit all this in, but at the same time I'm finding if I'm creative, I can fit it around my other responsibilities. Having said that, it does kind of feel like cycling's taking priority over everything else, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. There's a lot to be said for the mental strength in training every day, doing all the training through the rest of the year outside of the events. But considering how average I am, and I'm probably always going to be, I am questioning a little bit how appropriate 20 hours a week is for me. So the benefits of following a plan like this, first and foremost, the obvious one, I'm feeling far better and far stronger than I ever was. In terms of actual numbers, I won't get too scientific on this because I did test at the start of the process. We haven't tested as we've gone through the plan. I did a ramp test on the TAX software. It didn't exactly go swimmingly, but my FTP off the back of that was 255. Giovanni thought, after seeing the video, that it probably wasn't correct. So we set the FTP higher to begin with, and that made the sessions really challenging. As the plan's gone on, like I say, haven't tested. I've been doing the sessions as they come into me, and I can tell you, it's keeping me on my toes. In terms of testing though, I'd really like to do a proper VO2 max and FTP test at some point. I've noticed Portsmouth University offer that service, so I might go in there around the 6-month mark and see how much of an effect this training's really had. In terms of how I feel, I can say out on the bike, I can definitely feel I'm a lot stronger than I used to be. I don't think I was a slouch particularly. I quite like to go back and ride the same routes. Recently rode to Stonehenge. I could really feel on that ride, I get through the route so much easier than I used to and faster. I can see the impact on my body as well in the mirror. I don't weigh myself all that often, but I weighed myself this week. I always used to weigh between 70 kilos, 74 kilos max really. I was quite surprised to see I weigh 78 kilos this week. I can't see a huge amount of difference in the mirror in terms of fat around my middle section, but what I can see is my bib shorts are a lot tighter than they used to be, my work trousers are a lot tighter. I feel like a lot of it's probably lean mass around my lower body. But again, not getting too scientific on that front. I can only really go by how much tighter my belt is and how much of my abs I still can't really see. Lastly, another benefit that came to mind is diet and lifestyle really. It's such a challenging plan for me that I find I'm always kind of on a knife edge of recovery. If I push my luck, if I drink alcohol, go off the rails slightly, I will not recover, I'll just crash. I do like a drink. I like a Guinness, I like an IPA. This year I haven't touched any booze apart from maybe once or twice. It's just not worth the risk. On top of that, I'm finding I am eating better as well, although not perfectly, I'm human. So, are there drawbacks to training this many hours? Not really. The main drawback I've seen, I've touched on to already, and that's just doing this many hours with the other priorities I have, it does feel like my training takes priority over everything else. I don't get a lot of time to spend time with my partner, family, friends. That doesn't really happen a whole lot. When I finish work, if I'm working from home, I shut the door in the spare room, jump on the turbo for 2 hours, train until 7 o'clock, my partner's around the house. When I finish my training, I'll get out of the spare room, get in the bath,
cook some food, then we'll sit down and eat. We get a small amount of time to catch up, but I don't really spend a whole lot of time with her. My parents, my family and friends, I haven't really seen anybody for quite a long time. I think if you don't have a full-time job, you've got more time to fit other things in. But for me, an average weekend, I've got anywhere from 8, 10, 14 hours to train. And I don't want both days to be all about cycling. So I'll try to have a big day on a Sunday. And on the Saturday, I'll try and do 2 or 3 hours, go for a cruise with Rob, and have the rest of the day to try and do other things. What I will say, I have this many hours because that's how many hours I've allocated to training. When I started working with Giovanni, we sat down, had a conversation, and he asked me, how many hours do I have available to train? And I wanted to give as much time as I could to training to see what I'm capable of. So, should you consider a plan like this? If you're similar to me, you're an amateur, you're an adult, you've got a full-time job and other responsibilities to take care of, then I can tell you it's definitely possible. You've just got to work on finding ways to make it happen. And if, unlike me, you're pretty strong to begin with, you've got aspirations of placing well in races, then I've got no doubt that following a plan like this will benefit you. Like I've said a couple of times, you've just got to be prepared to make some sacrifices and be flexible. And when you sit down with your coach, have the conversation, how many hours do you have available to give to this? Think about your answer very carefully and be honest. Take it from me.
Great. Oh well. There's a lot worse places to get a puncture and be stranded, I suppose. Hold on, that didn't take very long. 5 minutes. I like to ride anywhere really. So riding a road bike off-road, it's a bit of an occupational hazard. It does just mean it's 5-10 minutes off my riding time, which I'll have to add on to the end now. So pretty much back home now, and I really hope that was useful to some folks. If you're considering going all in with your training to see what you're capable of, then hopefully that gives you a little window into how it's worked out for me so far. Then I am only 130 odd days in a row into this. Let's see where it ends up. As for today, after the puncture and stopping to film that, I've managed about 2 hours, so that leaves 10 hours for tomorrow. And honestly, didn't want to get out of bed today, so let's see how that goes. I think at this rate, I might have to do a couple more hours this afternoon after lunch with my partner to try to mitigate some of that carnage tomorrow. Let's see if I can be bothered with that. That said, I'm definitely into the not so nice roads of Portsmouth now, so I love you all and leave you here. Also appreciate this one was a lot more, even more waffle than usual, so if you made it this far, then thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week with a bit more riding. So stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I'll see you all next week.